I think demographics is a real issue where people are not having kids in a lot of countries, and very often they'll say, "Oh, I'll solve it with immigration." Immigration from where? If Europe has an average, or many parts of Europe have an average of a 50 or 60, they're only at 50 or 60% of what's needed for replacement, or China for that matter. They're at half replacement rate. Where exactly are we going to find 600 million people to replace the ones that were never born? I think people are going to have to regard, to some degree, the notion of having kids as almost a social duty within reason. I mean, just if you can and you're so inclined, you should. It's like otherwise civilization will just die, literally. The birth rate is strongly correlated to, it's inversely correlated to wealth, inversely correlated to education, and correlated to religion. So the more religious you are, the less educated, and the poorer you are, the more kids you will have. And this is true between countries and within countries. In the US, the highest birth rate is in Utah with the Mormons. Yeah. I think if you're saying what are threats to civilization, the lack of people is obviously a threat to civilization. We are going to face in the mid part of the century, and particularly the latter part of the century, a demographic implosion, the likes of which we haven't seen, including the Black Plague. The math is obvious. When did China ever experience a 50% reduction in its population? Never. I mean, basically, pre-writing, okay, because no one's ever written of such a thing. Even the Black Plague, Black Plagues would go through, I think that they might have demolished like a quarter, but never a half. And yet Spain, birth rate of 50%. It's as though someone went through and killed half the population, or at least of the future population. There's something better happen to turn this around, because otherwise you have an inverted demographic pyramid. And it's going to, at this rate, the only thing that'll be left will be robots. 3 generations of 50% birth rate, 50% replacement rate, gets you to 12% of where you were. And those poor 12%, all they're going to be doing is taking care of their grandparents. I mean, eventually there just won't be people at that rate. The other, I think religious extremism is obviously a concern. If that grows over time, particularly if it's a sort of a Luddite form of religious extremism. Anti-technology, right, anti-science, right, exactly. Then that's an obvious threat. Yeah, I won't mention the third one.
You might, you have to say it.
I hope the AI is nice to us.